Hi everybody. The apartment building behind me is where Joan Jett used to live in the 70s, and it kind of ties into my story behind the song Lonely Calls to You. But it's loud out here, so I'll take you back to the comfort of my own home and tell you about the song, and then we'll come back here and I'll tell you a little about the house. Okay, see you soon. Bye. The story behind the song Lonely Calls to You starts with my friend William Shakespeare, who opened a studio in Long Beach and was working on new songs and contacted me and said he wanted to write a song for me. And I said, yes, please write me a song. And he did. He wrote the song, played all the music, and had his friend Joe Tucker play the bass and guitar on it, and then sent me the song. And I loved it. So then I had to write lyrics. And sometimes what I'll do is go through my bag of tricks. And my bag of tricks is binders and notebooks of lyrics I've written ever since I was a little kid. And you might be, if you know any of my other music, you might be surprised to know that some of those lyrics came from the bag of tricks. Anyway, I was listening to the song and going through the binders, and I found Lonely Calls to You. And it worked so well with the music. And I loved it. I loved that it was a story and that you were kind of observing it. I love singing as an observer, as a third person. And then also the idea that this is happening to them and you're talking about these people, but it could happen to you, and it probably will happen to you. I liked all of it, and it all worked together. So I went to Long Beach, and we recorded it, and he produced it and mixed it, and it turned out really good. The interesting part is, I wrote those lyrics when I was 16. I was going through those binders, and I recognized the type on the page, and it was from my grandma's old electric typewriter. And all of those songs have a copyright date on it. I won't tell you the year, but I was 16 when I wrote that song. So then I loved it even more. So it's this new music with these old lyrics, and it worked so well with the idea of this album I was making, I Guess I'm Not Alone, which is like the past meets the future and you're reflecting. It all worked so great, and I loved it. Then I had a listening party of all the songs that I was going to put together for the album with some friends, and we listened to all the songs, and everyone loved Lonely Calls to You. I'm like, hey, we have a winner, we have a single. So then we had to make a video. So Devin Tate and I decided to do it on Sunset Strip and in Hollywood, which made it even better because when I wrote those lyrics, all I ever wanted to do was live here. And to this day, my favorite parts of living here are the Sunset Strip, Hollywood, and the beach. So it all came together. And for the video, I must mention that whole idea of the phone booth, that all came from Devin. Like, it never even occurred to me. I don't know how it didn't occur to me, but it didn't. So it's all Devin, and he was so clever, and it's all great. And that brings us to the connection between the Joan Jett apartment complex and my song, Lonely Calls to You. I take these walks every day, and I love walking up on Sunset. And I had known that Joan Jett in the 70s had lived like somewhere around Whiskey, and I had never known, but I finally got an address. So on one particular day, I was making a point of I was going to stop at that house. And as I was walking up the hill, I thought of Joan Jett and then all her connections to all the Blondie members. And I was also thinking about Lonely Calls to You, because that's how my mind works, if you haven't noticed. And I was thinking of my song and how, even though I only wrote lyrics, I always had a melody in mind. And that melody that we made of that song was very close to what I remember in my head. And then all of a sudden, all three of those ideas like just blew my mind, and I had a memory that I almost forgot about. And so I'm going to share it with you, and it's embarrassing, so you'll love it. At the time I wrote all those lyrics, I was making fake records. I was recording all my songs into a tape recorder, and I would sing the songs and also do the guitars and the drums so people would know what it was supposed to sound like, perhaps. And my grandfather worked at the paper mill, and so we always had reams of paper around, and sometimes we had really big reams, and I would cut out 12-inch squares so that I could make the album cover of those albums, and I would make them with magic markers and crayons and create this whole thing. But Lonely Calls to You was on one of those albums. I performed as Swivik. I made up the name then, and I was in a band. I was definitely in a band, and it was our third album called Susie and Jeffrey, because I did a cover of the Blondie song, And I did that cover because I was going to write a screenplay of the film based on that song. And it was going to be my big debut as an actor playing Jeffrey. I even wrote a rock song duet for me and Debbie Harry called Love Is Found. And on that album was Lonely Calls You. So it's been around forever. And I totally forgot about that idea until I was walking up the hill to go see Joan Jett's apartment. Anyway, I was much too old, probably, to be doing that, but, you know, I did the music part because if I ever had a band, I wanted them to know how to play those songs and how to do it correctly. And also, imagination is a wonderful thing, and you should never lose it, no matter how old you are. And with that, we're going to cut back to me in front of the Joan Jett house with one more short story. I swear it's short. And then I will bid you adieu. Thank you. And we're back in front of the Joan Jett apartment building. According to my sources, Joan Jett moved in here around 1977. And as you can tell by the top of the video, it's just down the street from Whiskey Go-Go. And I don't know if the Runaways ever played the Whiskey. I assume they did. But I do know in 1977, Blondie came to LA and played their first 2 shows at the Whiskey. And they stayed here with Joan Jett, or at least hung out with her. And there's other pictures of Joan with a bunch of people in her apartment just hanging out. So I don't know who lives there, if they know all the people that were in their apartment, but I do know this is rock and roll history right there. And that's what made me think of my album, Susie and Jeffrey, and that is finally the story behind the song Lonely Calls to You.